Captain America Brave New World was wasn't that good, but I want to tell you guys why. Stick around, find out.
You're now watching The Captain.
So first and foremost, when I'm talking about this movie, I think the thing that I want to kind of let everybody know that this movie to me feels like a big transitionary movie, if that makes any sense. The movie in itself as a standalone movie though, was solid. It was okay. It felt like in a lot of different instances, it was trying to recapture that same energy that made Captain America Winter Soldier amazing. And I'll get into like specific moments and things that it did to showcase that and why I think that. But just for the general overview, I do think that this movie is okay by itself. It's something that the family, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the best friend, whatever the case is, you get to take people to go see this movie and you guys will probably enjoy it. If you're movie buff though, and you like grade movies on a harsh curve, there'll be some glaring issues here and honestly some lack of innovation in my opinion in certain aspects, but that's just the MCU in general, I guess, in the formula they made. This movie to me doesn't stray too far from the formula in itself, or at least it tries to by just copying something else that strayed away from the formula, thus, in my opinion, kind of sticking to what we expect. But without further ado, I want to start getting into details for it and some of the spoiler stuff. So if you haven't seen it yet, stop here, go watch the movie. I highly advise you to go watch the movie. I think it's worth spending money on in the theaters to go see. Just don't rush to go see it. Then come back here and we'll talk about it. But for the people that have seen it, let's get into it. The movie, for the most part, centers around Samuel Stern, the leader, a guy that we remember from the Incredible Hulk movie in 2008, the guy that got the Bruce Banner blood leaked into his forehead, and then they alluded to him becoming the character in the comics known as the leader. He is that in this film in all his big green brain goodness, and he, for the most part, is centering in this movie with the sole intention of ruining the reputation of Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, the new president of the United States. A guy that is played by Harrison Ford now, and he does a pretty solid job as the character, but we'll get into a little bit of acting stuff a little bit later on. But to continue that, Thaddeus Ross is the president, and he essentially is trying to do a couple big things before we get into the whole main plot of Samuel Stern. Two big things he's trying to do that were really big points of contention that we had to think about was bringing back the Avengers, because that was something that he really wanted to do, which you guys have been keeping up with the MCU up until this point. You'll be aware that the Sokovia Accords, which is something that Thaddeus Ross pushed forward, kind of killed the Avengers and killed a lot of superhero-dom in general in regards to making superheroes register and have to reveal their identities and work underneath the United States government. So now he is trying to form a new squad, or at least he had the idea to form a new squad with Sam Wilson as the leader, as the new Captain America and leading that team, which leads me to think, especially after watching the post-credit scenes, that we're going to get another Avengers team officially in the MCU very, very soon. But the main thing that this movie is centered around outside of the Samuel Stern beef is the idea of there being a unified treaty with all the major powers of the world. We all come together and agree upon the usage and the collection of a new resource that has been found on the celestial island of Tiamat, I believe is the name of the celestial, which we're finally addressing this after a million different shows and a million different movies in the MCU. There's finally a movie really addressing this big god that is like partially outside of the earth now. On this god, on Tiamat, on his corpse, this island is shown to find this metal that is shown in the movie to be the most versatile metal in the entire world now, which is known as adamantium. Yes, for the people that aren't aware what adamantium is, it is the metal most associated with the Weapon X program in Marvel Comics. And if you aren't aware what the Weapon X program is, it's the program that is most utilized and known for building super weapons, essentially, and super soldiers at that. They're responsible for the likes of Deadpool for the most part in the comics, as well as the guy that we all love, Wolverine. So we'll, at some point, this leads me to believe that we will get a Wolverine in the MCU, just due to the fact that the main metal that is responsible for his, shink metal claws is in the world now. So we'll get that at some point, and we already know that the mutants exist in this world. But yeah, besides all that, the main idea of this film is for the world to be kumbaya together and come together and use adamantium in the most progressive and ethical way possible going into the future. But what interrupts this is an assassination attempt on the president, and that leads into Isaiah Bradley. Carl Lumbly playing Isaiah Bradley was a treat in this movie. He essentially goes to try to assassinate the president first and foremost. He kicks all this stuff off, and there's a whole kerfuffle, and he ends up in prison and framed, well, not really framed, but manipulated to try to assassinate the president. Man, he got some moments to really express a lot of emotion in his face. in the quiver of his voice. If you're familiar with Isaiah Bradley from watching the Captain and the Winter Soldier series that came out a couple years ago, you'll know that he is the first super soldier known to man. He was experimented on and during the war and locked away for 30-ish years. So he's really familiar with being a prisoner and has a lot of trauma associated with that. So in this film where he's been framed or manipulated and now going to prison, he obviously doesn't feel comfortable doing it, and a lot of that trauma starts to come back up. And you see it in how he communicates that, and it's really sad to see in a great way, because he's acting and conveying this emotion in a great way. This movie, in my opinion, is very reminiscent to the Captain America Winter Soldier movie. It tried to do that in a lot of different instances by using Isaiah Bradley and his assassination attempt, and kind of really, in my mind, being a direct mirror to the Bucky Barnes Winter Soldier assassination of T'Chaka, the Wakandan leader at that point. And there's that parallel there. And you even have like a literal chase scene where Anthony Mackie, Sam Wilson is chasing Isaiah Bradley, trying to stop him and trying to capture him in the same way that you saw the main chase scene after Bucky from Captain America at a certain point in the Winter Soldier movie. So like there are literally certain beats that are like a mirror image of each other within these two movies, which I do think was purposeful in regards to trying to recapture some of that magic. But in a lot of different ways, it didn't really have that same aura that Winter Soldier had. And there's a lot like more of a cleanliness of it in the way it was done. This movie almost in a certain way feels like almost like propaganda almost, if that makes any sense. Like not in the same way that like the Transformer trilogy that Michael Bay did was like military propaganda. It's not in that same way, but it really takes like the ideals of what Captain America is and it really tries to punch that into your head to let you know like, hey, although he is Captain America, he's a good man first and foremost, and is a man that everyone around the world respects, not just the American man. And we see that a lot in this film, which more importantly, we see that in the relationship that Sam and Isaiah Bradley have. Obviously, Isaiah Bradley is really hesitant of trusting the American government, especially the American president. So he has that black man like relationship of like almost like a mentor figure essentially together, where they talk about this stuff and he's giving him warnings to be very wary of the government and the president, because in this movie Sam Wilson is like working with the government. Things get rough in this film in regards to the relationship, at least with the president, and how Sam navigates that. And that's something I do want to speak on too as well when it comes to this plot. You see Sam Wilson struggle with kind of the same issues that he had in the Captain America and Winter Soldier show in regards to a little bit of an imposter syndrome, where he kind of at a certain point feels like he should have taken a super soldier serum that I guess was offered to him at a certain point to be as strong as Bucky and Isaiah and Steve, which he turns down, which I didn't know that was a thing. Maybe that's something that happened off camera or something that I forgot about from a previous movie or a show. But he has that imposter syndrome again. We already closed the book on this door in regards to him having imposter syndrome. I feel like the film should have tried to find another angle to move forward on. And that's probably the weakest part of the film, in my opinion, is like the arc they're trying to take Sam on. It's an arc that is feeling somewhat repetitive. I don't feel like he really grew too much or changed in this film at all. It felt like they kind of took him and planted him back into where the beginning of the Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier show was, and had him grow from there again, where he kind of went through the entire arc again of being good enough to be Captain America, which is also kind of weird because you start the movie off with him being Captain America in the best, grandest way possible, having respect from all the military, from different aspects of people in the world. Even some of the villains that were in this to a certain extent have respect for who he was. So the fact that he's now questioning at a certain point in this movie again, his validity as Captain America, it felt kind of to me. And I feel like it should have been a different arc you could have taken him on. But nonetheless, getting back into the plot again, Samuel Stern is on this journey to decredit or discredit and destroy the legacy of Thaddeus Ross in this film, mostly because essentially after the end of the Incredible Hulk movie, Thaddeus Ross took Stern as a prisoner and held him in this like secret off-site location, which was I think like Echo One was the name of the base, which is kind of similar to the Raft, but another black site where they kept him and only him, and not only kept him prisoner, but hyped him up on more of Bruce Banner's blood and like hyped him up to the point to where his brain capacity to be super smart worked to his benefit, and he created a lot of weapons and a lot of different things for Thaddeus Ross to help boost and bolster his career up until where he is the president now. The thing that I want to like kind of discuss in regards to this plot point is the way that Stern's powers work, and I say powers very loosely because he essentially is just a super genius, but not just a genius from the engineering or biological or chemistry standpoint. They really harp on this factor that he is an elite person in calculating probability and the chances of different things happening. It's something mentioned in the script in a couple different instances, but I don't think it's very well presented in any different way. It's really just presented in the way of like him guessing where people will be or actions people will take based off the probability of it happening. And it kind of rubs me the wrong way because we saw in like multiple instances that his probabilities and the chances he took on certain probabilities that he had and calculated were wrong. So he was like, oh, I won't make that mistake again. And he just continuously relies on his probabilities, even though there is a probability for him to be wrong in this situation in multiple instances that happened in regards to what he's predicting people to do and their actions that they take. And I feel like that could have been something that could have been used a lot more. Yeah, but for the most part, that's the movie. It's literally just Stern trying to ruin his reputation. And how that's done, because we have a different instances where he's trying to start a war and have that war feel like it's being caused by Thaddeus Ross and his actions. And when those don't work, he literally goes to his master plan, which I guess is the plan he had all along, to turn Thaddeus Ross into the thing he hated the most, a Hulk. So obviously, if you've seen the credits or any of the promotion for this, you know that we get the Red Hulk in this film. The Red Hulk in the comics has always been a dope dude to me. I think his abilities being the fact that he like has this pyrokinetic ability on top of this being a strong Hulk was always cool to me. And the red design was always a dope thing in my opinion. But in this movie in particular, it served to be okay. It was nice to see Hulk in the MCU again, or a version of the Hulk, just doing Hulk things and not being a professor and not being, I guess, a different version of the Maestro from Marvel Comics. If you know, you know. It was just good to see that pure rage just go about, but it didn't lack the oomph and the like impact that like the 2008 Hulk movie had in regards to like hulking out and combat and all that stuff. It just didn't seem as violent in my opinion, but you know, to each their own. But the transformation though was achieved through a long process of Thaddeus Ross taking these pills that Samuel Stern created for him. And these pills were made and created for him to help cure this heart disease that or failing heart that Ross had. He was diagnosed with that nobody in the world could fix except for Samuel Stern. But over time, these pills were jacked up in the amount of gamma radiation that was in them, and they were engineered to seep into the blood, which then created which then created Thaddeus Ross as the Red Hulk. I think the issue that I have with this is that they tried to do the whole spy thriller thing here with having this smoke screen of all the other, why don't we call it a smoke screen? These were legit plans that Stern had, but the other plans in regards to causing war through espionage and insider trading secrets and all this other good stuff that you will usually associate with like a spy movie, all that stuff fell short really quick. Like we had the plots and they were figured out really quickly, or it was just scenes where literally Samuel Stern himself in certain instances would just like tell you what he wanted to do. And there's a lot, and that's another thing about this movie. The exposition is very tiring in my opinion. The main characters monologuing and telling you the backstory of Samuel Stern, or like motivations or people's backstory or what's going on in this moment in time. It like felt like it was trying to make sure that everybody that hadn't watched the shows or other movies up until this point were like caught up to what was going on. But I think it served to really harm the film because if you have to explain everything going on, probably takes away from it takes you out of the moment, at least for me, in regards to what was going on, especially in something like a spy thriller, into which seeing these characters like invade places or sneak into places, get information, decipher the information. It felt kind of weird and awkward for you then to just explain all the information we just got instead of like showing like bits and pieces of it, like in a Captain America Winter Soldier. But you had certain instances of that in regards to like the Adam Zola stuff that you saw in there. But I think it was presented in a lot more of a menacing, intimidating, and like cinematic way, if that makes any sense, man. I could be rambling here, but it felt different. Like a lot of the ways that this movie copies the Winter Soldier and story beats, the Winter Soldier just did it in a very much so more impactful and like way that this presented more aura. Like it felt like it hit more. This movie just did in regards to like deciphering stuff, and not for the trying of actors, because I think all the actors in this movie did a really solid job, especially in the comedic aspects, because this movie was very much so like a blend of comedy and having seriousness in it, which I think served Anthony Mackie as the lead really well, because he's a really funny dude, and I think he can jump between being serious and comedic very well. If you've seen the Twisted Metal series on Peacock, like I think that's probably like him at his peak in his prime, where he's doing that very well, and this movie does that. But I think where you're losing people short is just literally just the over exposition, and then like a lot of the moments where you would have this serious stuff going on. I think the jokes in certain instances were placed in bad places, because this movie just has a bad habit of taking you out of the moment. Like in one way or the other, it'll set a tone, it'll set a mood and get you locked in and engaged, and then exposition will happen, or like joke will happen at the wrong moment, in my opinion, that would take you out of it. And again, it didn't kill the movie for me, but again, I just couldn't get like immersed in it as I want to, like I did watching The Winter Soldier. And I know that people may be mad that I'm comparing the two so much, but it's hard not to when this movie copies so much of that. Like the majority of the movie is legit just like the taking of Steve Rogers and Black Widow in regards to them going to solve this mystery of what was going on with Nick Fury being framed, and replacing those two with Sam Wilson and I think Diego was his name, the new Falcon in this world, and that was a duo now. And they go to an area, have a fight scene, get information, decipher it. Go to another area, cool fight scene, get information, decipher it. And that was the kind of the trend we saw there. And it just didn't hit as well as the Winter Soldier stuff, because the Winter Soldier felt more like a spy espionage thing. And this felt more like a spy / military op. And maybe it was supposed to feel like that, but I don't know. It literally, for them trying to do an investigation, I felt like there should have been more of a whodunit mystery type of thing here. And the mystery should have carried out through more of the film, because that's probably my biggest complaint with this film, is that you started off with trying to do this mystery whodunit situation, but that mystery gets solved like within 45 minutes to an hour into the film, and it's like a damn near 2-hour movie. So once we have the mystery solved of who did the attempted assassination, who was behind it, why he was behind it, there's not a lot of mystery left to the imagination there, especially in regards to like what the main villain looks like. Stern in the beginning of the movie was pretty intimidating to me. I think he was up there in regards to like some of the better introductions with like Ultron and Thanos, but this character fell short in a lot of the ways that Ultron did to me, to where the reveal for him was definitely way too soon. Like if we were doing the whole mystery thing, it should have been a little bit more hidden on who he was, because you saw like him in the shadows a couple times, and then literally there is a sound cue, which again, this is another thing that's kind of stolen right out of the Winter Soldier in regards to like trying to have like this iconic sound or like music cue that made the audience sit on edge, like with the Winter Soldier theme music. But in this instance, it's something that everybody heard in regards to a song, and in the song, the name Mr. Blue is said in it. So if you watch the '08 movie, you immediately know, oh, that's Buddy, that's Samuel Stern, I know that guy. And I get them trying to have that in there to drop a breadcrumb, but it felt like a heavy-handed, like not, they weren't dropping breadcrumbs, they dropped like a whole half a loaf almost. Because if you watch the movie in '08, you automatically know who that is, and you automatically know what's probably going on there. At that point, you're just looking for motive, and the motive wasn't that hard to figure out. You threw me in jail, bro, and you made me work for you, and then you lied about me getting out, so I want to ruin your legacy now. That's the movie for the most part. And I know it sounds like I'm just ragging on it and ragging on it. I did enjoy watching this movie though. I think it was a fun watch. The action in it was top notch. I love the choreography. The conversations were outside of the exposition were pretty good. There were scenes where Giancarlo Esposito shines like he always does. Anthony Mackie shines like he does for the most part. Harrison Ford had his great moments. But when you get into those expeditionary parts, it really brings the movie down, in my opinion. And this is where I kind of get into kind of telling that this movie was rewritten a few times in regards to the fact that the script felt like it took parts from different scripts and like fusion danced them into one big script, because it felt like there was a lot going on, and then you just reveal things way too soon in regards to, again, the Samuel Stern stuff. If you would have like taken out one of the subplots and gotten rid of like the Japan war thing potentially happening, or that treason or that declaring war thing, getting that out of here, because essentially that was Ross being framed for almost trying to declare war on Japan. If you get rid of that subplot and stick to the main thing in regards to Samuel Stern's setting Thunderbolt Ross up to turn into a Hulk on the main stage, if you just have that be the buildup, or like, and you allude to that a lot more throughout the film, I think the movie is a lot better movie forward. And that's where I think it is the biggest issue. It's just a lot going on in regards to subplots and main plots and subverting expectations, because it doesn't do any of those three things exceptionally well, in my opinion. Nothing in this happened that felt incredibly innovative or incredibly new. This whole movie just feels like a way for them to try to mirror the dopeness that was Captain America and the Winter Soldier. One scene, if you had to watch a scene that sums up a lot of my issues with this movie, was the Greater Hulk transformation scene. It was this thing where they were trying to showcase like the horror of this Hulk transforming. It felt like it was kind of rushed. It felt like it didn't have a lot of like presence about it. Like, I'm thinking back to how they did transformations for the Hulk in the Incredible Hulk movie in 2008, or even like the cool way that they did it in the Avengers, the first Avengers movie, where Hulk revealed that he was angry the whole time. I feel like they were just better hulking out moments in the MCU thus far, and us getting to where it's just Harrison Ford getting angry and transforming very quickly, and there not being any kind of like intimidating presence about it. Like, this Hulk didn't feel very intimidating, and that's what I'm kind of like stuck on in regards to a lot of the Hulks that are shown in the MCU thus far. Outside of Hulk in Civil War, there hasn't really been like an intimidating Hulk. Like, the Hulk is big and he's fighting, and you know he can do a lot of damage, but he didn't have that level of intimidation. And maybe it's because we're seeing him in the bright light and the way they're shooting him and the way the color grading is. Like, he doesn't seem very intimidating, in my opinion. But I'm looking at like the dark, gritty sweatiness of the Northern Hulk and how crazy that Hulk looked, and maybe even some of the funness of the first Ruffalo go around in Hulk, and this Hulk just didn't sell it for me. But I am excited to see what this Hulk looks like in other stuff, because I'm pretty sure he'll be in a Thunderbolt at some point. It just makes sense to have Thunderbolt Ross be a part of the Thunderbolt team, especially with their movie coming in May. I want to see like what that team looks like after that movie. All in all, I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking at a lot of different stuff, and again, as a movie in itself, it was a solid like 6 out of 10. I'd probably give it that on the first watch. Maybe watching it again at home, I can't even say. I would probably give it higher than. I'll have to sit on this movie a little bit more if I ever moved up to a 7, but for the most part, I think it's gonna sit at a 6. This movie definitely follows the trend that Marvel has been on for a while in regards to making just like mediocre, okay movies that were okay to watch, but they weren't bad, they weren't terrible. But we gotta get out of that at some point. I'm hoping that the Fantastic Four is the movie to do that, to really like give us a really great Marvel movie, but this wasn't it. And this movie definitely felt like a device to usher in a new status quo of the Marvel universe, Marvel Cinematic Universe, versus it just being a very great movie in itself. I think it failed to do what it tried with Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I think that movie was a perfect example of how that worked. The status quo, and not just the movies, but even in shows like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series, like changed and how things went forward, and it still had a level of like presentation that the Russo brothers like brought to that I just did not see in this film. Y'all let me know what y'all think about the movie in the comment section below. Am I tripping on the 6 out of 10 rating for it? Am I nitpicking at things with it? Y'all let me know. I'm interested to know what people's favorite performance was in this. Did you guys enjoy Anthony Mackie as Captain America? I think at this point, to me, he is doing a damn good job at being that character, and especially with it being like a mirror to the comic books. I think it's fine. I just think we need to put him in a movie that has better direction and serves to be a movie with a plot versus a movie that is seeking to just be a narrative device to kind of go from point A to point B. And that's what this movie was. But if you're enjoying the content that I put on the channel and enjoyed this video, you can find the rest of the videos here on the channel to be just as entertaining. Please subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to be a part of a dope community where me, as well as a lot of other dope people, will be conversating and hanging around, playing video games and talking about these Marvel movies and DC movies that are coming out, or shows and whatever, you can find that in my Discord that is linked in the description below. But again, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo. I'm exhausted. It is like 2 o'clock in the morning over here. So I'm gonna go to sleep. Y'all be good people and just be nice, man. I'll tell y'all later. Peace.